Hello and welcome back to Mindset Matters. My name is Victoria, and today we're going to jump right in. We are talking about validation. Okay, I think this is a super interesting topic because, of course, you have internal validation, external validation, validation in terms of social media, and how we are very driven by certain types of validation in our society these days. And I want to explore questions. Is validation necessary? Does it help us grow? Is it actually helpful? Is it bad for our ego? What does too much validation look like and result in? So, those are the things we're going to explore. And it's funny, the reason I wanted to do this topic is because I was kind of reflecting on my own podcast with Mindset Matters, and I was thinking about how I haven't gotten a ton of feedback as of late. And I think what can be challenging with that is it's hard to know, are people liking the podcast? Do people still enjoy listening? Am I still doing a good job? Like, what can I improve? So for me, I know that, feedback obviously helps us grow and improve and reflect. And feedback, in a way, is a type of validation because if someone tells you you're doing a good job, it makes you want to keep going. If someone gives you positive feedback, you feel validated in what you're doing. So, in that sense, it's like a confirmation that you're doing well. And I'll be honest, I think that that can be important and that can be really helpful. I mentioned this in another podcast I did recently where sometimes you have your internal belief, you believe in yourself, but until someone else tells you, hey, I love what you're doing, it can be hard to kind of measure if something's working or not. Or that can be a really big motivator, hearing words of affirmation from other people, which really is validation, right? So it's this kind of question of, well, is validation bad, or what type of validation is bad? Because I think too much validation can definitely cause some problems. So I want to kind of break down internal versus external validation. So internal validation might be things like affirmations, okay, things that you tell yourself. So, I'm doing a good job. This is the things that I'm doing well right now, okay? Internal validation to me can be like a self check-in, okay? You're kind of reflecting on how you're doing and thinking about it. And again, you're affirming what you're doing. Self-belief, okay? So, believing in yourself, definitely important in life. And internal, okay? And you guys know my favorite word, intention. So having intention, so you're intending to improve, you're intending to do good things, you're intending to do well in life. So with that in mind, you're internally, again, affirming or validating the ideas that you have, the goals that you have, etc. Okay? So all of those things to me felt positive. I mean, I think a way that maybe internal validation could be bad is if you're telling yourself, oh, I'm so perfect, I have nothing to improve on. Or you're not accepting that there are other sides to different situations. I think sometimes we go into arguments thinking we're 100% right. And I read somewhere you should always go into an argument thinking you could be 10% wrong. So you're saying, obviously you think you're mostly right, but there's always a chance, there's always wiggle room, because it's important, again, to be open to other perspectives. So I think internal validation can maybe be harmful if you're not assuming any responsibility for growth. And people who are very maybe entitled or walk around like they're absolutely perfect, I think maybe too much internal validation could be going on there. Okay, let's think about external. So external validation are things like someone telling you you're doing well. Okay, so someone giving you positive feedback, positive reinforcement about something. External validation in social media, those are things like likes, comments, views. I feel like these days, those are huge. We measure in big part how good a video is by how many likes it gets or how viral it goes. Okay, I remember being in university and everyone was obsessed with posting their photos 7 p.m. on Sunday. Let me know if you remember this. 7 p.m. on Sunday or 7 p.m. Perfect time. Everyone's on Instagram. You'll get tons of likes. I remember people, being kind of obsessing over how many likes they got on a photo. Or if they didn't get enough likes, they would delete it and repost it. And there's this idea that, that external validation matters more than what we're putting out there. It's like what we put out is only good if other people like it too. And I think recently this is why I'm a bit more turned off from Instagram, is just the idea that everything we should post on there should be curated and has the intention of being very curated, which I think happens less nowadays, definitely. But overall, that's still kind of the theme of Instagram, where TikTok, I feel like people kind of go on. They don't always care what they look like. They're not necessarily there. I know there's filters and stuff now, but I don't know. It just feels a little more casual, which I think is more relatable overall. So those are different forms of external validation. So I think where I want to go with this conversation is like, when is validation negative? Because for me, again, with the podcast, when I was in my early days just starting out, I mean, it's still pretty new and I don't really know what the heck is going on. But I remember the first few really nice messages I got from people, they truly meant so much to me. And I was like, wow, someone out there is A, listening to the podcast, B, enjoying listening to me talk about stuff, C, cares enough to write out a nice message and send it to me. Like, that blew my mind, honestly. And receiving those types of messages really were super motivating. And it made me feel like, okay, maybe I'm doing something good here. People can relate. They're, able to self-reflect and kind of get something from what I'm saying. I want to keep going. I want to keep posting and keep recording. And again, it's something that's also I'm doing because I enjoy it, right? So in that sense, getting that feedback, that positive feedback, that validation was really great. And it's something I appreciate. And now that I've noticed getting less messages, again, it kind of had me thinking like, is that it? Like, am I done? Do I have nothing else good to say? And then it's like, wait, well, why do I think that? Because someone who still regularly listens, who already sent me a nice message, isn't going to check in with me every few months. Like, you know what I mean? So it was interesting just to feel in my own self, like, oh, I kind of started to question whether or not, or question how well I was doing based on that external validation. So it's kind of interesting to think of it from both sides. So I feel like when this external motivation turns kind of negative is honestly when we start to give it too much importance. Because I think you can only control yourself at the end of the day. So if you're proud of the picture you're posting, the video you're putting on TikTok, the content you're making, the project, okay, even offline, the project you're doing, like if you're proud of what you're doing, in theory, it shouldn't matter how much validation you receive or how much praise you receive or how much, again, likes, comments, views, whatever. Because if you're proud of what you're making or doing, again, this could be online, offline, work-related, hobby-related. If you enjoy it, I think that should be the main purpose. So I think when we put too much importance on validation and too much importance on the feedback we receive, then you're always relying on that feedback to feel good about yourself. And I think that can be very dangerous because, again, just like my situation, you're not always going to get that positive validation. All your videos aren't going to go viral, realistically, or get 1 million comments or likes or whatever that is. So I think when we put, again, too much pressure, too much emphasis on the feedback we're receiving, that's when I think it can be dangerous. Okay, and it kind of goes back to this idea of your root why. Like at the root of everything, why are you doing it? Why are you posting the Instagram story? Is it because you want the one person, your crush, to see it and reply to it and give you external validation, send you a little heart emoji, a little fire emoji? Okay? If ladies listening, I know you've all done this, okay? We've all been there. So it's funny because at the root cause, I think this is why social media is so interesting to me though. At the root cause, why do we post anything? And I think if you deeply ask that question and you get deeper and deeper, like let's kind of dig into it. On the surface level, why am I posting a photo on Instagram? Surface level, I'll say, oh, it's a good photo. I like it. I think I look good. Okay. But can that be true without me posting it? Yeah. So let's go deeper. Okay, why do I want to share it? Oh, well, I have friends and family, who will see it and I want to share the memory with them. Okay. Let's go a little deeper. And a lot of the time it's like, well, I want to share it because I know it's a good photo and I'll get lots of likes and comments and maybe someone will notice me or whatever. Like, I think a lot of the time, the root cause of why we post things sometimes is about the validation that we know we're going to receive. Definitely, I feel this with stories because stories is kind of like you're updating how you're doing. Oftentimes, it's easy to reply to them and it's a private reply versus commenting on a photo. So stories where it definitely at some point in time could get to that place of people would check. I think people still do this. I personally don't do this, but I definitely used to, where you check who viewed your story. Okay, this is funny. We think about like the delusional girls from last week where like, oh my God, he viewed my story. Like he's in love with me. It's funny, but it's true. Like at the root cause, a lot of the time we do things for that validation that we know we're going to receive. And when you actually think about social media, I read this, I think it was in Atomic Habits. Great book, by the way. But I was reading, I'm pretty sure he said that the dopamine hit. Okay, let's imagine this. I remember now. I had to go back. So the first time you ever post, let's say a really cute Instagram story, you start getting all these people replying, wow, you look so good. You get heart eyes, you get fire emojis, all these things. And it feels good. You're like, whoa, validation. Like, wow, I look so nice and people are telling me. Like, that feels good. So then what starts to happen is before you even receive the feedback, your brain knows what's coming. So your dopamine actually will spike when you post the story with the expectation that certain people are going to reply, either a lot of people or a specific someone you might have in mind. And then what happens if they don't reply? The dopamine goes back down and you actually feel way more disappointed. So if the root cause of you posting something is to impress someone or to receive specific validation from a specific person, that's where it gets dangerous because you're going to feel really disappointed. If you're posting it just because you look good and you're doing it for you and you love it and it doesn't matter who sees it, who comments, whatever, then that's great. Then that's fine. But I think it can be easy to slip into the habits of like wanting the validation, if that makes sense. So in that sense, with that whole example in mind, I would say, or I would argue that I believe your why should always be based internally. Okay, the reason that you're doing something should be because it brings you joy. I love doing this podcast. I think it's really fun and it's something I can do that's creative. I've talked about that before, but I like it. Okay, I'm really enjoying it. Now, I can't lie that getting positive feedback definitely feels good. There's no question. But at the end of the day, if I have an episode that doesn't get as many views, right, or I don't get very much interaction with it, I don't really feel a type of way because the reason I'm posting is because I like it and I'm proud of it. And I always want to put stuff out that I'm proud of. And if that's the case and something just doesn't get a lot of traction, then that's okay. And I'm not upset about that because my why is based on my internal motivation to do something. I guess that's called intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation. I think that's the word. I didn't do any research for this one, okay? I got my journal of notes from last night. So for me, I feel like, yeah, you should think I do it because I love it. It's something that brings me joy. It's something that could be helpful. And the external validation and feedback is kind of like a bonus, I guess. So that is kind of how I feel about that part of it. The intrinsic why are you actually posting? And I feel like it just, I don't know, social media just blows my mind in a way because I feel like we all know it's bad for us in so many ways, but there are definitely positives. And then we're in a society where it's like we're in too deep and it's just like this is life. You could choose to not have it, which I still think is like a big flex. If you choose to get off social media and can stick to it, good for you. Okay, kind of a side note, I guess semi-related. I've been watching a lot of like 90s TV shows lately. I started watching Dawson's Creek. To be honest, I didn't love it. I got a few episodes in, probably watched 7 or 8 episodes. And I'm currently watching, these are both on Amazon Prime, by the way. I'm watching, oh my gosh, Fruit Fly. Oh, stay away at least. I'm currently watching Party of Five on Prime. And again, it's like I think it started in 1994, 95. And it's so cute. It's such a cute show. And I just feel like the 90s were the 90s the peak of society? Because I just love in shows when you have to like watch the person drive up and go to someone's house. How sad is it that no one just shows up at people's houses anymore or has to call and see if they're home? Like, we've just become so accustomed to like tap, 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 and that's it. There's like no effort. I don't know. And especially in television, not even in real life, but in television, I feel like TV and movies before smartphones is so much more interesting. Because again, you have to watch the person go to their house. Obviously, now a lot of TV shows use social media in their movie and show. And I'm just sick of it. I'm like, I just don't even want to see it. I don't know. Anyways, I feel like in terms of television, late 90s are kind of fun. It's fun to watch, especially now that 90s fashion is back. I feel like I wore an outfit today and I was like, I literally look like Dawson in the first episode of Dawson's Creek, but that's kind of fun. I like it. All right, we're going to recenter ourselves back to my notes. We got a little bit off track there, but still semi-related. I don't know. I feel like I can kind of chat with you guys, even if, again, no reply, no validation that what I'm saying is relevant. Okay, I want to talk about social media again and get into another example of where I feel like this external validation can be kind of dangerous. And that is when people blow up overnight and just become like crazy famous, seemingly out of nowhere. Suddenly they're like, everyone is talking about them. They're in like news. People are talking about their video. Like, I'm talking like people who just like blow up and they're suddenly uber famous for maybe a TikTok video or something. I feel like this can be dangerous, especially for younger people on TikTok, like the 15 to 20-year-olds, people who've like their brains aren't even fully developed. I think this can be dangerous because I feel like that just goes straight to your ego. And that's dangerous. When it's all in your head and it's ego-based validation, that's when we start to crave it. And we start to think like we're on top of the world. We're so cool. We're the best. Like everyone loves me. And I feel like that is like a steep incline and a very possibly steep decline as well. And as an aside, I have to say I'm really grateful that TikTok did not exist when I was in high school / university. I feel like even having Instagram I feel like for me started in like the beginning of university. And even that was just like a lot. And I can't imagine being on TikTok so much younger and like consuming so much and how addictive it is. Yeah, really grateful not to have had TikTok so young because I don't know, I just feel like it's dangerous. I feel like it goes to your head. It can be super ego driven. And at that age, when your brain is still developing, it's like, it could even be a high school thing. Something happens and suddenly you're on top of the world. Think about how much your ego could have built from something happening in high school. And now imagine it like, but you're actually like going viral, famous on the internet. Like, I just can't even imagine. I feel like that would not be good. And I think that I would have a very steep ego incline, sharp decline, and just like mental health would be not doing well, to be honest. So I'm grateful for that. But that's why I feel like when people blow up overnight, like I hope they have a really good support system around them, because at that point you start getting attention from people. You don't know if they're your friends or not, right? Getting external validation. Well, why are these people saying this to me or want to be around me? Is it just because now I'm famous? Is it because they actually like me? Like, then you have these issues of trying to decipher who's actually your people. So I think that can be really challenging. And an example I want to give is Miley Cyrus recently released a new song, Used to Be Young, and she did this TikTok series where they were posting a bunch of videos interviewing her and talking about different moments in her life. And she mentioned the reason why she's not touring right now. If I can remember, I'll find the video and link it because I think it's interesting to hear her talk about it. But essentially, she talks about how touring was not good for her ego. And when night after night, her relationship with other humans is like the spectacle and observers, and having like thousands and thousands of people screaming for you, cheering for you every single night, like that becomes your reality. And like she was saying how her ego started to get to a place of like, yeah, I started to think I was the coolest person or I was the best. And you start to get out of touch. And it's not surprising to me that a lot of celebrities seem out of touch with reality to a degree, because they're constantly getting this validation and they're constantly being told that they are elite, that they are amazing, that they are like so much better or cooler or whatever than everyone. And it's just like, I feel like that level of success, no matter who you are, I think definitely would take a lot of therapy to not affect you to that point. And what I liked about what Miley said was it was very self-reflective, and it was very cool to hear a celebrity talk about that, because it wasn't something I had heard before where she directly talked about her ego and how right now the reason she doesn't want to tour is because she wants to be able to write music and connect with herself and people. And when she was in that stage of night after night, people just screaming at you and you're there to perform, and it's just like you keep on repeat, it's hard to kind of ground yourself, I guess. I think with everything, I almost am annoyed that this is my answer to everything, but self-reflection might be, I think self-reflection and presence might be my answer for literally everything. So maybe I should just never make an episode again. Oh my gosh. So, but the reason I say that is because for someone as famous as Miley Cyrus, again, to talk about that and to recognize, hey, I didn't love when I felt like this because I didn't feel like a human anymore. And like, these are my priorities and this is what I'm doing. Like for me, love that. Like super self-reflective. And her goal is to be present in what she's doing and focusing on writing music. Cool. So I think if someone blows up, super famous on TikTok, okay? Which again, and that could be anyone. Anyone can go viral. Anyone can blow up. Anyone's stuff can start getting views and get traction. And I think in that moment, it can be hard to not be like, whoa, like, okay, this is cool. And not that you shouldn't feel good about it. Like, obviously, there's a lot of people making content, and the goal is to make something of yourself, or the goal might be to, you know, have an audience and create a community and whatever that looks like. So if you start getting traction, in a way that means, okay, yeah, things are working and things are in motion and I'm doing well. But I think it's just that piece of not letting it go too much to your head, focusing on your why, and being willing to ask yourself the tough questions. Like, why am I posting this? Am I too obsessed with or too excited about certain validation from certain people? Am I looking for certain validation from certain people? And having a good hard look at like, okay, what do I need to do to like avoid that, I guess, or gonna get out of that cycle? I take a lot of breaks from social media, especially Instagram. I feel like I just don't love engaging on that app for too long. So I'll take breaks, or I'll really be mindful again of how much I consume. And I'll try not to post things unless I'm feel like there's a purpose behind it, I guess. So that's kind of my take on it. Like, again, I think feedback is super important too, because feedback can also be negative. It doesn't have to be always positive feedback, right? Sometimes you blow up on a video and all the comments are negative. Okay, and that can also be hard to be like, oh my gosh, this video got 2 million views, but all the comments are ripping on me. That happened to me once. And it was funny. Like, but again, I didn't take it seriously. This is a good example, actually. It was like a 8-second video. I was at school, and one of my students' alarms were going off in their bag, and they weren't in the classroom. So I was joking, like, uh-oh, this is going off. I'm on prep. Would it be wrong to turn it off? And like, I didn't show if I turned it off or not. That will be forever a secret. But no, but it was funny because all the comments were like, oh my God, if that happened to me, I would sue. Like, they were so angry and like fighting in the comments. But it's funny because those are the videos that do well, is when people are fighting in the comments. So it's like, no matter what, if you blow up or a video gets a lot of traction, you're never going to just have positive comments. There's always going to be negative. So I think that's important to keep in mind too. You know, it's like people always say, I've heard this before, people say like, oh, when you've made it when you start to have haters. Like, when people start hating on you, that means you're popular enough, or you have enough attention for people to be jealous and want to bring you down, I guess. So I think that's kind of a funny example or quote to keep in mind. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be people bringing you up, always going to be people bringing you down. And I think constructive, good feedback isn't always positive. I think negative, like constructive criticism, is also important to grow and important to be open to, because if you're just hearing all the time that you're the best, oh my God, I love what you're doing, it's so great, blah, 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 that can start to develop a little bit of an ego. So I feel like that's all I've got for you on this topic, but I'd love to know your thoughts. So send me a message if you like. I would love to know other people's thoughts on this. I like to chat about it, but of course, I'm curious to know what you guys think. So anyways, if you'd like to, send me a message. We can chat, we can discuss. Or if you have any other topics you want me to dive into, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great week, and I will chat with you next week.